Good morning, I am Pramod Kumar Srivastava, Professor, TVIT, TAV. Here I am going to deliver a lecture on business research methodology. Today's topic is research design. So, in research design, first we go through the outcome of this research design. The research design is a comprehensive plan that outlines the methods and procedures of collecting, analyzing the data in the research studies. Second, it ensures that the research questions are answered in a valid, reliable, and efficient manner. So, these are the outcome of this topic or today's lecture, and by this you can understand how you can collect the data and how you can interpret the data to the valuable inputs. So, overview of the research design. Research design is a controlling plan for research study in which the method and procedure for collecting and analyzing the information to be collected in a specified. It is a framework or a plan for a study that guided the collection and analysis of the data. The word design means to work out the structure or a form as by making the step or the plan. Thus, the research design is a planning or a strategy or drawing a blueprint of conducting research. It is guidelines for collecting and utilizing data so that desired information can be obtained with a sufficient precise and hypothesis can be tested properly. A research design for the purpose of producing the result that may be applied to the real world situation. It not only enable researchers to anticipate potential problems that can occur during the actual operation of the research, but also to limit boundary of the research study. So, in a very simple manner, while we are doing the research design, that is the main objective to do the data collection and end of the research finding. And in the between of this, design is very important for any research. It is simply, we can say, that the blueprint of the any research. So these are the steps already we go through in a research: defining the problem, developing appropriate approaches of the problem, formulating the research design, doing field work or collecting the data, preparing and analysis data, and preparing and presenting the report. So we are in the third steps, the formulating of the research design. Some of the popular definition of the research design. Research design is plan a sequence of the entire process involved in conducting the research study by Miller. The research design is a catalog of various phases and the facts relating to the formulation of the research effort. It is arrangement of the essential conditions for the collection and analysis of data in a form that aim to combine the relevance research purpose with the economy to proceed by. So, in a research design, it's a master plan that specifies the method and the procedure for collecting and analyzing the need of the information. So, whatever the need and information for the research activity, it's a master activity or it's a blueprint for the research design. Next is need for research design. Why there is a requirement of the research design? In a very simple word, a research is a scientific investigation of the problem for which we need a systematic planning of the research. So whatever we are designing a systematic planning in a very scientific manner, so first is the thing that the formulation of the strategy to resolve a particular problem. So first, the requirement or need of the research design to formulate the strategy to resolve a particular question. Whatever the question arises, and for the solution of that question, we are formulating a strategy that is called research design. Second is to collection and the recording the information and evidence. Whatever the information, whatever the record or whatever the evidence required to collect, we are doing in it. And the third is the processing and analysis of the data and their interpretation. Whatever the data we are collecting, we have to first process the data and then analysis of that data for the interpretation to reach a valuable result. And the fourth is the publication of the result. Whatever the result coming out by all this process, we can publish that result. So a research design stated a structured and process of conducting a research process. Thus, it shows a path to a researcher without which he may be lost or confused as to what the next step he has to take. So, research design also giving in the input to the researcher that there may not be any doubt or confusion for the researcher, because if they design in a very proper manner, then there is no doubt and the confusion for the every step or step by step process. So more, it also take care of the study. All this planning can only make a research study a success story. So research study also reach to the success story. Next is the features of the good research design. So it is very important and challenging for every researcher or every research study that we have to design a good research design, and it is challenging to translate general scientific method into a practical research operation. Really, it's a very challenging thing to a general thing into the scientific manner and reach to a practical conclusion. Therefore, designing a research study is not a simple task. There is nothing like completely correct design or a completely incorrect design. We cannot say that no design is completely correct design or no design is completely incorrect design. A design may work very well for one research problem and may not work at all for the other. So it's a very simple term for research designing, that whenever that design is very crucial. Design is crucial. We cannot say that one design is really good for one research problem that may not or that might not be good for the another research activity or the another research problem. There are some feature, however, a good research design should. So first feature of the good research design is the freedom from biasness. Whatever the information, whatever the input, whatever the analysis, whatever the interpretation, whatever the finding and conclusion we are gathering through our research study, that should be free from biasness. A good research design should ensure that the method of the data collection and analysis would not cause the data to vary in a systematic way. That is to say that the data should be free from systematic errors. So whatever the errors coming in the research activity, but that error is free from systematic error. There is no biasness in that design, or there is free from the biasness. So first important feature. Second is the free from the confoundings. In a good research design, the variables involved in the study separated from each other so that they do not influence each others. So freedom from confounding. If that is not freedom from confounding, that might be one variable impact to other variable, and that impact giving you a wrong connotation or wrong interpretation, and as result in the wrong finding. Control of extraneous variables. In a well-designed research study, the variables that are not under scrutiny do not influence the experimental variable in a systematic way. For example, things like temperature, time of date, etc. So whatever the extraneous variable, that research is free from that extraneous variable if you are not giving a freedom of the extraneous variable. That might be the incorrection in the findings and outputs. So fourth features considered as in the statistical precise for testing hypothesis. Whatever the hypothesis we are inputting on in research or designing the hypothesis, so we have to test that hypothesis. Our research design should ensure that the data are recorded at a level of precise that will yield statistical meaningful result. So whatever the information you are gathering from your research or the whatever the statistical analysis or interpretation of the statistical analysis, that should be a meaningful result. Fifth is the with in resources. A design should draw limit of the research study so that could be completed within available resources like time, money, and staff. So whatever the resources we have available, we have to conclude and we have to limit our research with our limit resources available. That important resources is the time, money, and the staff, or we can say that the manpower involved in our research. Sixth one is optimality. We have to do on the principle of optimum. The best research design is one which yields maximum precision in terms of the bias and the variance using minimum resources in terms of sample size, time, and money. So whatever the resources we are using in our research study, we have to optimize our output through minimizing inputs or minimizing the resources. Seventh is the objectivity. If rated by more than one researcher, a good research design obtains some results. Thus, a good research design should be free from the subjectivity of the performers. So, whatever the researcher involved, sometimes different type of researcher involved in a particular research study, and that sometimes their objectivity or subjectivity is sometimes conflict, creating the conflict. So in the research or in a good features or the good research, we have to go through the objectivity of the research, and we cannot divert our research from our objective of the research. Next is the flexibility. Flexibility is a very simple term and everywhere it's required. So in research design also, our design is as flexible as it can workable on the meaningful result or reach on the meaningful result. It is often observed that one has to deviate from the basic research design during the operation of the research study due to the real world problem. Sometimes the real world problem is really critical and we cannot use or we cannot do in a better manner if there is rigidity in our design. So flexibility is very important for the good research design, which not only has the potential to predict such practical problem but also is flexible enough to incorporate changes in it whenever it needed. So in a very simple term, we can say that features of the good research design is first, the freedom from biasness, second, freedom from confoundings, second, control extraneous variable, fourth, statistical precision for the testing of hypotheses within resources. Whatever the resources, we go through the resources, we have to limit our research with the resources. Optimality, we always use the principle of optimality, objectivity, and finally the research design have a flexibility to reach on a practical solution. Sometimes research giving you a solution, but that solution is not considered as a practicable solution. So in this slide, tasks involved in the research design, there are various tasks involved in research design. First, define the information needed. Second, designing the exploratory, descriptive or the causal phases of the research. or specify the measurement and scaling of the procedures, construct a questionnaire, specify the sampling process and the sample size, developing the plan of the data analysis, and in today's we have to discuss the designing the exploratory, descriptive, causal phases of the research. So after formulation and definition of the research problem, the next step is to choose an appropriate research design. Every research study is a unique in itself. So we cannot say that one research is usable for the another research or one design is usable for the all other research design, whatever the design is very excellent. But with the every research have a different design. So every research study is unique in itself, but there are a certain thing common in this study. One, the basis of these commonalities, one can categorize the research study by research method and procedures used to collect and analyze the data. Accordingly, a research design is chosen, or we can say that the research design is split into two parts. One is exploratory research and second one is conclusive research. So in exploratory research, we go through the secondary data or the experience survey or the pilot survey or the case study survey. And in conclusive research, we go for conclusive research. We go for the inconclusive research. There are the descriptive design or the causal design or experimental design. So we first go through the exploratory. So in exploratory research is defined as collecting information in an structured or informal way. For example, a restaurant owner may regularly visit other competing restaurants in order to gather the information about menu selection, prices, and service quality. So there is a very simple activity for the improvement, or might be the how we can operate a better restaurant operation. For this regard, the owner want to explore the information what other competitor is doing for this. So for this, the owner is gathering the information about the menu, about the price and the service, whatever the service delivered by the restaurant. So exploratory research usually conducting during the initial stage of the research process. So whatever we are doing initially, we using exploratory research because we simply explore the phenomenon, facts or the figure available. So purpose is to narrow the scope of the research topic and to transform ambiguity problem into the well-defined ones. Exploratory research techniques. Exploratory research techniques, secondary data analysis. Always you are using the secondary data. Secondary data are the data previously collected and assembled for some project other than the one at hand. Or we using the pilot survey study to collect a term for any small scale exploratory research technique that use sampling but does not apply rigorous standard, including the focus group interview, unstructured free flow interview with a small group of the people, projective technique, indirect means of the questioning that enable the respondent to project beliefs, feelings onto the third party or an intermediate objective, the word association, testing, the sentence, completions, test, role playing, etc. are the using in the exploratory research. So exploratory research techniques, we are using the case studies, intensively investigating one or the few situations similar to the problem situated in a case study. Experiencing survey, individual who are knowledge about a particular research problem or question, whatever the research problem knowledge available to the individual, we questioning on that problem. So we can say that in a very simple term, exploratory type of research that investigation may be conducting because the problem has not been clearly defined. So when problem is not clearly defined, we are using the exploratory type of the research. It helps in determining the best research design, data collection method, and the selection of the objects. Usually, exploratory research is qualitative in nature. Sometimes exploratory research may even conducting that perceived problem does not actually exist. Sometimes we are using the exploratory research. At that situation, we do not know about the problem. Just we are exploring the information. On the exploration of that information, we are creating some findings, and that finding is very much usable for others. Generally, an exploratory research design help in finding out the feasibility of the research problem. So whatever the research problem, we sometimes we use the feasibility of that research problem. On that cases, we are using the exploratory research. Getting familiarity with the various components of the studies, generating the new ideas and formulating the hypothesis. For this regard, we are using the exploratory research. Exploratory research design are of different form depending on the nature and objective of the studies. So what type of exploratory we are using, that all depend upon the nature of a study and the objective of the study. The following three forms is most popular in exploratory research. So first one is the literature survey. In any research, a review of the literature is an essential part. The literature survey is carried out at a preliminary stage of the research. Through the review, one understands the work that has already been done and what more can be explored in one chosen field. The theories and the technique used in existing literature can be used in the present analysis, or there can be modified to a given better result. So literature are the documentary source of information which are contained in the published or unpublished documents. Sometimes documentary source are published documentary source, or sometimes it is unpublished documentary source, report writing, statistical information, manuscript, letters, diaries, so on. It is important for a scientific work to scrutinizing these sources very closely. Since not all document can be consulted, it is best to start a selective process clearly or early. The theory and the technique of the literature must serve usual purpose, should not alter with the changing circumstances with the pages of or phases of the time. Second is the expert survey. When we are using the expert survey method, we are using exploratory type of research design. Expert survey or the experience survey means consulting the experienced researchers who are expert in the field of the study. Means whatever the field of study we are using or choosing, for that particular field of the study, we are selecting some expert, and whatever their view, we are using their inputs. One should not be shy in taking the advice and guidance of the such people. They should be given some time with the problem before asking the questions about the study, so that they can question about the study and they can options after the thoughts and after the problem, or after the going through the problem or going through the informations. Third type is the example survey. In case of the new type of studies, sometimes neither much literature nor expert advice is available. Sometimes not literature is available, sometimes is not expert is available. At that time, we are using the example survey. In such situation, it is advised to go through some cases studies performed in the past. Whatever the something performed in the past, we go through that cases. In this refers to insight stimulation example. This is simply the insight, stimulation, example, single cases or the group of cases or as may be relevant to the research study are selected and studied in order to collect data for main study. So we can say that in exploratory research we are using three things: literature survey, expert survey and the example survey. In literature survey, when we have a documentary evidence available and that situation, that documentary evidence is available, might be the published or unpublished, we are using the literature survey. Sometimes we are using the expert survey. On that situation, we are just using expert of the particular research and their view is inputting in the research. So that is called as the expert survey. But sometimes there is a situation we haven't available any documentary evidence, we haven't available expert. At that situation, we are using the example survey method. In that situation, we are taking one case. On that basis of that cases, we are obtaining the information, and on that information, we are exploring that the whole thing. So that is called example survey. So in our exploratory research, we are using three type of activities or three type of survey: literature survey, expert survey, and the example survey. Next is a conclusive research. In a conclusive research aim to provide a clear and definite answer to a specific research question by using systematic and structured methodology. When we are using the systematic and structured methodology for clear, definite and specific research questions, we are using the conclusive research. So conclusive research provide specific information that aid the decision maker in evaluating alternative courses of action. Whatever the alternative courses of action we have available, on that basis we are using the conclusive research. Sound statistical methods and the formal research methodology are used to increase the reliability of the information. And third one is the data tends to be specific and decisive. Whatever the data set should be tends to be sound and specific or decisive, and also more structured and the formal than exploratory data. So in a conclusive, we can simply say that in a conclusive research design, that is more formal than an exploratory design, because sometimes we are informal or we become informal in exploratory design. So a conclusive research design is more formal than exclusive research design. Type of conclusive research designs. In a conclusive research design, there is in the descriptive research, describe attributes, perceptions, characteristics, activity, and the situation. So in a descriptive, as per the name, just we have to describe different attributes or different perceptions or the different characteristics, activity, and the situation. Example: who, what, when, where, why, how are type of the question we are using in descriptive type of research design. Second type is a causal research. It provide evidence that a cause and effect relation exists and does not exist. So whatever the cause and effect, the relation between the variable that is exists or not exists in causal research, we are finding that things. So premises is that some thing or dependent variable directly influence the behavior of something else that is dependent variable. So in our causal research design, we just finding the cause and effect between the dependent variable and independent. If there is a cause and effect between the dependent variable, or if there is no cause and effect between the independent variables. So there are main characteristics of the conclusive research definite in result. Conclusive research is designed to provide a clear, specific, actionable result that help in making informed decision or making informed decision. So when we require informed decision, we are using the conclusive research. Second is the quantitative in nature. This type of research often relies on a quantitative method and gather the numerical data that can be analyzed statistically. So conclusive research design is quantitative in nature. Third is a large size of sample. When large size of sample, we using the conclusive type research typically involve larger sample size to ensure the results are generalizable to broader population. So when we are using research, that research should be generalization, or the objective of research is generalization for the larger scale of the population or larger level of the population. We are using the large size of sample, and when we are using the large size of sample, we are designing a conclusive research. Fourth is the structured data. Structured data collection. The data collection method are highly structured using the standardized tools such as survey, questionnaire method, or the experiment to ensure consistency and reliability. Hypothesis testing involves to testing hypothesis to confirm or the refute the assumption or the theory. Objective and reliability. The research design aim to minimize the biasness and ensure the reliability and validity of the finding. Next is the comparative analysis. Often include comparative analysis to understand the differences and relation between the variable. Decision making. The outcome of conclusive research are used to make strategic decision, develop policies, or solve a specific problem. So the example of the conclusive research is the conclusive research including the market survey to determine the consumer preferences, clinical trial to test the efficiency of the new medication, and experiment to evaluate the impact of the new teaching method. So when we are using the conclusive method, when we have a requirement of that kind of research, we are using the conclusive method. And there are some validation or some results of the conclusive method is the validated theory, confirming or refuting the existing theory with the empirical evidence. We are using conclusive method. Actionable insight. When there is a requirement of actionable insight, providing the clear guidance for the business strategy, policy making, or the scientific advancement, we are using the conclusive method. Third is the generalization finding. When there is a requirement of generalization finding, we are using the conclusive method, producing a result that can be applied to a larger population beyond the sample study. In summary, conclusive research provides definite and reliable answer to a specified research question, facilitating information decision making and contributing to the advancement of knowledge in a particular field. So these are the major importance or major outcome of the conclusive research. So common characteristics of descriptive research. So when we are after the conclusive research, we go through the descriptive or descriptive research is also known as the diagnostic research design. So descriptive research refers to a set of methods and procedures that describe the study variable. Descriptive studies portray these variables may be answering what and why and how. So these are the variables who, what, how, whom. This type of research study may be described such things as in the consumer attributes, intentions, behaviors, and the number of competitors and their strategy. So very common characteristics in descriptive study is the build previous information. Second is show relationship between the variables. Representative sampling requirement, structured research plan, required sustainable resources, or conclusive finding. So these are the common characteristics of the descriptive study. When we are using the descriptive study, we go through these common characteristics. So we can say that simply descriptive research is also known as statistical research or the diagnostic research. It describes data and characteristics about the population and the phenomenon being studied. The description is used for frequency, average, and other statistical calculation. So major type of descriptive studies. So there are certain major type of descriptive studies. First one is the sales studies, consumer perception, and the behavioral studies, and the market characteristics studies. When we are going for the consumer perception, the sales studies, the market potential, market share, or the sales analysis. On the other hand, the consumer perception and the behavioral studies, image, product usage, advertising and pricing, or the market characteristics, the distribution, and the competitive analysis. So these type of studies we are using the descriptive studies. The process of conducting descriptive research can be linked to that of passing an idea of horse glasses. The research started with the consideration of the larger issues of interest, or there are then narrowed into the specific question. So sometimes there is the larger issue of the interest, but we have to narrow with the specific question and that become a practicable solution for everyone. The component of the hypothesis are operationalized into observable units and behavior to ensure that the independent and dependent variable can be observed and measured. The research is then conducted to observe the relationship of the interest in the context of the specific research environment. The observations are made or the data are collected to reflect behavior changes and the other indicators of the interest. The data are filtered and analyzed in order to generate conclusions that may support and refute the hypothesis, and then everything is considered in the context of the bigger pictures, which usually includes references and association with the broader issues, and started the process. Although the data description is the factual, actual, and systematic, the research cannot describe what causes a situation. Thus, descriptive research cannot be used to create causal relation where the one variable affect another. So in simply, descriptive research do not give a causal relation, just it describe the phenomenon, the events or the attributes or the observation. Next is a cross-sectional versus longitude design. So before discussing the differences between cross-sectional and longitudinal design, just we go through the cross-sectional study. Is a type of observation. Cross-sectional study is the type of observation research design where the data is collected from a population representative subset at a specific point in time. This method is used to assess the prevalence of outcome or the prevalence of the outcome or characteristics within the population. Here there are the key features and outcome of the cross-sectional study. So cross-sectional studies, snapshot in time. Data is collected as a single point in time, providing a snapshot of the population. So cross-sectional study giving us a snapshot of the population characteristics or the conditions. Descriptive and analytical cross-sectional study can be used for descriptive purpose to quantify either prevalence of the condition or characteristics as well as the analytical purpose of identifying the association between the variable or no follow-up. Unlike longitudinal study, there is no follow-up the participation over time. Population base often involve a representative sample of the population, making the findings generalizing of the broader population. Data collection method utilize survey, questionnaires or existing records to gather the data. Prevalence estimations commonly used to estimate the prevalence of diseases, behavior and other health related characteristics. Outcome relevant rate provided data on the relevance of the various condition or the characteristic within the population at time of the study. Or risk factor identification can be identified potential risk factors or the association between the variable through the causality cannot be established and the public health insight useful for the public health planning. So simply we can say that the cross-sectional or the longitudinal research design. So in a cross-sectional sample survey at T1, longitudinal we are using the sample survey as T1 and same sample also surveyed at T2. So same kind of sample surveyed at two times in a longitudinal research design and in a cross-sectional design we just sample survey at one time. So here given you the T1 and T2. T1 and T2 giving you the at time. At T time at one time and T2 is the another time. So at two different times we are getting the information at the same sample survey or same population units or same population population frame. Here are the certain key features we already go through in a cross-sectional analysis. Next is the longitudinal design. It is the research design that involves repeated observation and measurement. In a longitudinal design, repeated observation and measurement used here given is the T1 and T2 means the same sample surveyed on two times. That is the repetitive observations. On that repetitive observation, we try to gather the information. This type of study is particularly valuable for the understanding the long-term trends, changes, and the causal relations. So when we are using the research for the long-time purposes, whatever the changes in the long-time purposes, we are using the different time trends, and on that basis of the different time basis, we just creating the trends of the population or trends of the behavior or trends of the phenomena or the events we are going to study. The key features is extended observation period. The data is collected from the same subject at the multiple point in time which can span month, year or even sometimes it may be the decade. Tracking changes over time. Allow the researcher to track changes, development and progress in the subject being studied. Whatever the subject being studied, we will tracking for the long time. Coherent and the panel design often involve coherent group of the individual who share a common characteristics or experience within the definite period or the panel. Some individual measure repetitively over a time. Temporal sequence. Establishing the temporal sequence is help in identifying cause and effect relationship. Data collection method use various data collection methods such as the survey, interviewing, physical examination or use of existing records. Outcome is in a longitudinal study causing interference, providing the stronger evidence for a causal relation between the variable due to ability to track changes over time. So we can establish causal relation because in a longitudinal study we are using the track changes over a time. Development trends. In a longitudinal study we also identify the patterns and trends in development, behavior, health or other characteristics over time. After over time, whatever the changes in the behavior, whatever changes in the characteristics, whatever changes in the health. So at that basis we are using the longitudinal study. Predictive insight. When there is a requirement of predictive insight, when offers predictive insight by observing how early characteristics and behavior influencing life course analysis, facilitate the life course analysis, examine how experience and exposure at a different stage of the life affect outcomes later on. The policies and intervention evaluation. When there is in the policy intervention evaluation is assessing the long-term effect of the policy programs or intervention, helping the in a formulation and adjustment of the public policies. So example, health studies study the follow of the patient over time to observe the progress of the disease or impact of the treatment or the development of the risk factor. Psychological studies, the research that track the development of the cognitive, emotional or social behavior from the childhood to the adulthood, whatever the differences between the childhood to adulthood. So, for example, we can take a childhood as in the T1 and the adulthood we take T2. And whatever the changes between T1 and T2 on the same pattern of the data or the same data frame. The sociological studies examine how social, economy or the environmental factor influencing the individual life and the limitations. There are certain limitations, time consuming and expensive. Longitudinal study is very time consuming and expensive study. Longitudinal study require significant time the resources to maintain over extended period. Attrition, there is a risk of participant drop out over the time. Sometimes when we are using that particular participant, but over a time that participant is drop out or they due to some accidental evidence or due to some accidental problem, they are now not able to in the process of the observation. So at that condition, it is highly risk for the researcher. Complex data measurement, managing and analyzing the longitudinal data is a very complex and required advanced statistical technique. In summary, longitudinal study provide valuable insight into a long-term trends and causal relation, offering robust data for the understanding changes over time. Despite their challenges, they are essential for advancing knowledge in the various fields, including health, psychology, sociology, economy. There is very attributational changes. Sometimes the behavior pattern of the customer changes. So for this kind of changes, we are using the longitudinal study. So here there is cross-sectional and the longitudinal study, how they are different from each other. So on the basis of detecting the changes, cross-sectional is worse and longitudinal is better. Amount of data collected, cross-sectional is worse and the longitudinal is better. Accuracy, cross-sectional is worse but longitudinal is better. Representativeness, cross-sectional is better, longitudinal is worse. Response fastness, cross-sectional is better, longitudinal is worse. So these are the certain differences between the cross-sectional and longitudinal on that parameters, and the parameters are the detecting changes, amount of data collected, accuracy, representativeness, and the response vastness. Some alternative research designs: exploratory research, secondary data analysis and focus group, conclusive research, descriptive and the causal. Second, conclusive research, descriptive and causal, and the third is conclusive research, descriptive and causal, exploratory research, secondary data analysis, focus. So these are the some alternatives. So third type is causal or the hypothetical testing or the experimental research design. So causal, hypothetical testing or experimental research design are considered in the same type category. So in the causal research, common characteristics of the causal research: logical time sequence, complement variables, and the control and other possible causal factors. So first we go through the causal research design are used in hypothesis testing research. When there is the requirement of the hypothesis testing, we are using the causal research or the experimental research. This type of research design is conducted by the controlling various factors to determine which factors are causing the problem. So in a causal research design, just we are finding the factors, which factor is causing for the problem. It isolates the causal and effect. By changing one factor, say price, you can monitor its effect on the key consequences such as the sales. So what is the causal relation between the price and the sales? Although the experimental research can give a high level of understanding of the variables under study, these designs often require experiments that are complex and expensive. Some of the popular experimental designs are complementary randomized design, randomized block design, and the Latin sequence design. How descriptive and causal research design differs. Relationship between the variables. Descriptive design determines degree of association. Causal designs enter whether one or more variables influence other variables. So, on the basis of a relationship, descriptive and causal are very different. Causal just determine the degree of association. On the other hand, causal design are often giving you an input of the influence of one variable on the other variable. So degree of environmental control. Second, on the basis of degree of environmental control, descriptive design enjoy lesser degree of control on the or causal define the higher degree of control. On the other hand, variable, the descriptive design variables are not logically ordered. So in very simple term, we can say that different research designs, we go through the different research design. First we go through the exploratory research design. In exploratory research design, we using the three type of exploration. First one is the literature survey, second one is expert survey, and third one is the example survey. So in the absence of literature or in the absence of the expert, we are using the example survey. Second is the descriptive and diagnostic research. How we can describe a diagnosis on the particular problem, we are using the descriptive and diagnostic research. And third one is the causal hypothesis testing experimental research design. We are using the completely randomized design, randomized block design, or the Latin sequence design or factorial design. So these are the basic design we are using in the research. Next slide is comparison of the research design. We are comparing three significant research design. One is the exploratory, second one is descriptive, and third one is a causal. So on the basis of the purpose, the exploratory research design, the problem gain insight, descriptive describe the things, or the causal determine cause and effect relation. On the basis of assumption or background knowledge, the descriptive exploratory is the minimum, the descriptive is considerable, and the causal is also considerable. On the basis of the degree of structure, so exploratory is very less structure or little structure, or descriptive is highly structured. So on when we are using the very high degree of structure in our research design, we are using the descriptive. We are using descriptive or the causal research design, but we are not using exploratory research design because it is a very less structured design. On the basis of the flexibility, exploratory research have a very high flexibility, but descriptive have a very less flexibility, or even a causal research design have very little flexibility. On the basis of sample, the exploratory research is a very non-representative sample, a representative sample, a re-representative sample. This is the differences on the basis of sample. The exploratory is a non-representative, descriptive is a representative, or causal is a re-representative. In the basis of the flexibility, exploratory research is relaxed. There is a very relaxed flexibility. On the other hand, the descriptive have a formal flexibility, and causal have a very high control. So if we are talking about the flexibility in a exploratory research, there is the high flexibility, and on the other hand, the causal have a very little flexibility. So research environment, if we were talking about on the basis of the research environment, the research environment is very relaxed in exploratory research, but on the other hand, the descriptive research is the former, and on the last one is causal relation that is highly controlled. On the basis of the cost, the exploratory research is very low cost. On the descriptive research is the medium cost, or the causal research is very high cost research. On the basis of the finding, the exploratory research is preliminary finding, the descriptive research is a conclusive finding, or the causal research is conclusive findings. So these are the comparison on the basis of different parameter. We are taking the parameter is the purpose, assumptions, background knowledge, degree of structure, flexibility, sample, research environment, cross and finding. On that basis, we have to compare which research have a more probability than others research. So we can see that on the basis of all these things, that higher standard given by the causal research, but that will have a very time considerations and a very cost consideration. And on the other hand, the exploratory research we can do on a very short period time on the less involvement of the resources. So if you have a very less involvement of the resources, or we have a very limited resource available, at that condition we are using the exploratory research study. And if we have a no limit of the resources and we have a sufficient resource limit, then we can go further. And that also depends upon what kind of study we are going to do. So basic research method. So basic research method, we are using the secondary data analysis, survey and the experiment. In the secondary data analysis, that is analysis on the historical analysis. Survey is asking or self-reporting whatever the information we are gathered on the self basis, or the experiment made and research in testing in a controlled environment. When we are getting the information in a controlled environment or testing the information in the controlled environment, that is called experimental research. And the fourth one is observation, watching and recording whatever the information we are gathering on the basis of observation that we are watching, and that information is recording. In this slide, that is considered in the very last slide, and in the very last slide we can say that, or finally we can say that, or if you are asking which research method is the best research method, it is impossible to say that which research is the best research method or the best research design, because no one design will be the best. And in this slide we can say that you cannot put the same shoe on every foot. So different foot have a different requirement or different size. So as per the requirement, we have to design our research, or as per the possibility, as per the resource availability, we can design the research. It depends on the problem of the interest, whatever the problem we have, or whatever the problem is interested for the finding of that problem. So problem of the interest is one important factor when we are designing our research. Second is the level of information needed, what level we are gathering, or what level we are going to find out our problem, and at which level we are going to find out our problem. Third one is the what resources available with us, that resources related with the time, money and the manpower. And the next is the researcher experience, and at last we can say that the researcher experience is also important for the research design. So finally we can say that no research design is a preferred or the perfect. It all depends upon the situation and which situation we are going to analyze our study. So finally we can say that thank you. Any question and answer?